You have already felt that persistent sadness that seems to intensify with the passing of years? That sense of discouragement that settles silently after 60 years, gradually stealing your joy of living and your interest in the things that before you given pleasure? If you responded in affirmatively, know that you are not alone. The depression affects approximately 15% of people over 60, becoming, if one of the most prevalent psychiatric disorders in this age group, and, unfortunately, one of the most underdiagnosed and subtracted. The good news? The solution to this devastating evil can be much closer to the that you imagine, directly on your plate. Recent research reveals connections, surprising between certain foods and mental health, especially in the third age. In this article, we will explore 5 specific foods with scientifically proven properties to combat depression in people over 60. These are not miraculous healings, but food options, with bioactive compounds that directly influence neurological mechanisms related to mood and well-being. Why does depression increase after 60 years? Before we dive into foods that can transform your mental health, it is fundamental to understand why depression becomes more common with advancing age. After 60, several factors contribute to the increased risk of depressive states: neurobiological changes, natural reduction of neurotransmitters such as serotonin and dopamine, low-grade chronic inflammation, the so-called inflammaging directly affects brain function, changes in the intestinal microbiota, changes that impact the intestine-brain axis, nutritional deficiencies, deficiencies of vitamins B12, D, omega-3 and other nutrients, essential for the brain, psychosocial factors, retirement, affective losses, social isolation. Dr. Ricardo Campos, a psychiatrist specializing in geriatrics, explains, depression in elderly is often multifactorial and differs from depression in young people. The component, biological, especially nutritional, has a much greater weight than we usually to recognize. Unfortunately, many elderly are medicated without nutritional factors. Basic are investigated and corrected. Donna Margarita, 74, shares her experience. After I lost my husband, I entered a deep sadness that was not passing. I took antidepressants for 2 years, with few results. That's when my new doctor, besides adjusting my medication, looked closely at my diet. The changes he suggested, they made a difference that the remedies alone never did. Let's now know the 5 foods that can transform this reality. Food number 1, salmon, the essential brain protector. Salmon leads our list for a convincing reason: it is possibly food most complete for the brain health of the elderly. Rich in omega-3 fatty acids, especially EPA and DHA, vitamin D, high-quality proteins and antioxidants, the salmon offers a unique combination of nutrients that directly fight biological mechanisms of depression and old age. How salmon helps combat depression. Omega-3 fatty acids. The brain consists of approximately 60% fat, and DHA represents 30% of the neuron structure. Studies show that omega-3 improves fluidity of neuronal membranes, optimizing serotonin transmission, dopamine and other well-being neurotransmitters. Potent anti-inflammatory effect. EPA significantly reduces neuroinflammation, factor increasingly recognized in the pathophysiology of geriatric depression. Vitamin D bioavailable. Salmon is one of the few significant food sources of vitamin D, often disabled in the elderly and strongly associated with depression. Astaxanthin, this antioxidant pigment, responsible for the pink color of salmon. It crosses the hematoencephalic barrier and protects neurons against oxidative damage. A survey published in the American Journal of Psychiatry accompanied 432 elderly, with mild to moderate depressive symptoms. Those who consumed fish, fatty, mainly salmon, twice a week for 6 months, showed 42% reduction in depressive symptoms, compared to only 18% in the control group. Dr. Paulo Soares, a neurologist specializing in geriatric neuropsychiatry, explains, DHA not just structurally imposes our neurons, but also regulates the gene expression in the brain, influencing neurogenesis, the birth of new neurons, a process that continues to occur even after 60 years and is crucial to combating depression. Mr. Antonio, 78, shares his transformation. I was immersed in a sadness, constant that no medicine resolved completely. My psychiatrist, who also is a nutrologist, insisted that I included salmon in my diet at least 2 times a week. I confess that I was skeptical, but in the first month I noticed a subtle difference, and after 3 months, my family commented on how I looked. Back to life. Today, I make a question of my weekly salmon as part of my treatment. How to incorporate salmon into the diet. Fresh grilled or roasted salmon, the most complete way to obtain all benefits. 2 portions of 100 to 120 grams per week are enough. Canned salmon, a more economical alternative that preserves most of the omega-3, though with less vitamin D. Sardine and horsetail, more affordable alternatives that also offer good quantities of omega-3 and other neuroprotective nutrients. Preparation: soft cooking, steam, low temperature baked. They better preserve oxidation-sensitive fatty acids. Nutritionist Dr. Ana Paula Mello adds, for elderly people with limited budget, switch between different fatty fish such as sardines, horsetail and herring. It offers similar nutritional profile by a fraction of cost. The important thing is the regularity. Small quantities consumed often are more beneficial. What large occasional portions? Important note, for those who do not consume fish for personal reasons or problems of access, high-quality omega-3 supplements can be an alternative, always under medical advice. However, full food offers synergy of nutrients that hardly a supplement can replicate. Food number 2, turmeric, the golden anti-inflammatory. The turmeric, this golden spice that gives the curry color, has been gaining prominence in modern nutritional psychiatry for a solid reason. Contains curcumin, a compound with powerful anti-inflammatory and neuroprotective action that acts directly in several depression mechanisms. For the elderly, whose brains often face high levels of inflammation, turmeric offers natural support effectively, comparable to some conventional antidepressants, as turmeric helps combat depression. Potent anti-inflammatory cerebral effect. Curcumin reduces cytokine production, pro-inflammatory in the central nervous system, which are high in elderly patients with depression. Increased BDNF levels. Curcumin stimulates the production of the neurotrophic factor, brain derivative, an essential protein for neuronal health that it is often reduced in geriatric depression. Modulation of neurotransmitters. Studies show that curcumin helps balance the levels of serotonin and dopamine, similar to some antidepressants. Protection against neurotoxicity. Combats cerebral oxidative stress factor, significant in depression associated with aging. A study published in the Journal of Affective Disorders accompanied 60 patients with more than 65 years diagnosed with depression. Those who received curcumin, 1,000 mg daily, along with their usual treatments for 6 weeks, showed 32% reduction in depression scores, compared to only 13% in the group that received placebo along with standard treatment. Dr. Elisa Ferreira, psychiatrist and researcher in nutrition and mental health, explains, curcumin acts on multiple depression-related roads, but its differential for elderly are in the ability to reduce neuroinflammation and stimulate neurogenesis, hippocampal, precisely the most committed mechanisms in the aged brain. Donna Teresa, 76, shares her experience. After the death of my sister, I entered a deep depression. The medicines helped, but I felt apathetic. My doctor suggested that I include a daydream daily in the food. I started to take golden milk every night and use turmeric in the seasoning of meals. In a few weeks, I started to feel a gradual improvement in my mood. It was not overnight, but after 2 months, I realized that I was again feeling pleasure in the small things of life. How to incorporate turmeric into the diet. Golden milk, gold milk, mix 1 teaspoon of turmeric powder with milk, vegetable or warm animal, add a pinch of black pepper, which increases the absorption of curcumin up to 2000%, and some cinnamon. Daily seasoning, add turmeric to soups, stews, rice and vegetables, sautéed. Combination with fats, curcumin is liposoluble, so consume with some healthy fat, olive oil, coconut, significantly increases its absorption. Turicum tea, a lightweight gold alternative, ideal for afternoons. Dr. Roberto Castro, a geriatrician specializing in nutrition, recommends, for purposes, therapeutics in depression, consistency is critical. Small daily doses are more effective than large occasional quantities. And always match a little black pepper, which exponentially multiplies the bioavailability of curcumin. Important note, curcuma can interact with anticoagulants and some inflammatory. People who use these medicines should consult their doctor before consuming therapeutic quantities. Food number 3, bitter cocoa, the natural antidepressant. The bitter cocoa, in its pure form or like chocolate with a high content of solids of cocoa, is not just a delicious indulgence, it is a powerful ally against depression, especially in the elderly. Rich in flavonols, theobromine, magnesium, and tryptophan, cocoa offers a multifaceted approach to improve mood and combat depressive symptoms naturally, as bitter cocoa helps fight depression. Rich in flavonols, these compounds improve cerebral blood flow, increasing oxygen supply and nutrients to neurons. Studies, they show an increase of up to 10% in brain perfusion after consumption, stimulates the production of endorphins. Cocoa promotes the release of these natural neurotransmitters that generate a sense of well-being and reduce the perception of pain. Exceptional source of magnesium, this mineral is cofactor in more than 300 reactions. Enzyme, including many related to the production of neurotransmitters of the B. Deficiency is extremely common in the elderly. Contains anandamide, known as the molecule of happiness, this active substance, the same brain receptors as cannabis, but naturally and safely. A survey published in the Journal of Psychopharmacology accompanied 90 elderly, with mild to moderate depressive symptoms. The group that consumed 40 grams of dark chocolate, 85% cocoa, daily for 8 weeks presented reduction, significant in depression scores, cognitive improvement and decreased inflammatory markers compared to the control group. Dr. Marcos Oliveira, psychiatrist and researcher in neurosciences, explains, cocoa is one of the few foods that act simultaneously in almost all biological mechanisms of depression, neurotransmitters, cerebral blood flow, neuroinflammation and neuroplasticity. To the elderly brain, which naturally faces decline in many of these systems, this represents extraordinary support. Mr. Carlos, 83, shares his transformation. After retirement, I fell into a Sadness I couldn't explain. My psychologist suggested, among other things, that I replace the sweets I used to eat for small pieces of dark chocolate every day. In the beginning I found my taste too strong, but I got used quickly. To my surprise, after a few weeks, I started. Note that he woke up with more disposition and interest for the day. It seemed a subtle effect, but consistent. Today, my dark chocolate is a sacred part of my daily routine. How to incorporate bitter cocoa into the diet. Dark chocolate, choose versions with at least 70% cocoa, preferably 85% or more for therapeutic benefits. A daily portion of 20-40 grams is sufficient. Cocoa powder not alkalinized, add hot drinks, smoothies, oats or yogurt. This form preserves more flavonols than the Dutch, alkalinized, process. Cocoa nibs, small pieces of sugar-free toasted cocoa almond can be added to cereals, fruit salads or pure consumed. Cocoa bark tea, an option with less calories, but still offers many of the beneficial compounds. Nutritionist Dr. Carla Mendez warns, the antidepressant benefit comes from cocoa, not from sugar or milk added. Milk chocolates or a lot sugary offer few of the benefits mentioned and may even worsen inflammation and mood too. Long term. Always opt for the purest versions. Beginner's tip: if the taste of very dark chocolate is an initial obstacle, start with 70% versions and gradually progress to higher percentages. The palate adapts in a few weeks. Food number 4, yogurt and other probiotics, the messengers of the intestine-brain axis. Natural yogurt and other foods rich in probiotics may seem to choices unusual to combat depression, but represent one of the most promising of nutritional psychiatry. For people over 60, whose intestinal microbiome undergoes significant changes, probiotics offer a revolutionary approach to improve mental health through the so-called axis, intestine-brain. How probiotics help combat depression. Production of neurotransmitters, certain beneficial bacteria produce directly serotonin, GABA and dopamine, the same neurotransmitters targeting many antidepressants. Reduction of systemic inflammation, dysbiosis, intestinal microbiota imbalance, increases intestinal permeability, allowing inflammatory substances to enter in circulation and affect the brain. Communication via nerve vago, intestinal microorganisms send signals directly to the brain through the vagus nerve, influencing mood and the response to stress. Tryptophan metabolism, probiotics optimize the conversion of tryptophan to serotonin, often committed to elderly with depression. A study published in the journal Gastroenterology accompanied 124 elderly with depressive symptoms. The group that consumed specific probiotic yogurt daily for 12 weeks showed a 50% reduction in depression scores, compared with 20% in the placebo group. Even more impressive, resonance tests. Magnetics showed changes in the activity of brain regions associated with the emotional processing. Dr. Marina Costa, psychiatrist and researcher of the intestine-brain axis, explains, "We are finding that many cases of geriatric depression have partial origin in the intestine. With aging, the diversity of microbiota decreases, the intestinal permeability increases, and this allows bacterial toxins to cross to circulation and cause neuroinflammation. Correct probiotics can reverse this process." Donna Clara, 79, shares her experience. "I suffered from depression that I worsened along with my digestive problems. My gastroenterologist suggested yogurt, natural daily, besides other fermented. I started doing my own kefir and take every morning. At first, I noticed improvement only in digestion, but after A few weeks, my daughter commented how I looked more willing and cheerful. He was, when I realized that my mood had really improved considerably. Today, I don't give up my daily probiotics. How to incorporate probiotics into the diet. Natural yogurt, choose sugar-free versions with active living cultures, check in, label. A daily portion of 150 to 200 grams is ideal. Kefir, even more powerful than yogurt in terms of probiotic strains diversity. Beneficial, seitan kimchi, fermented vegetables that offer different probiotic strains. Found in dairy. Kombucha, fermented drink that also contributes to the diversity of microbiota. Gastroenterologist Dr. Paulo Menezes suggests, for benefits in mental health, the ideal is to rotate different sources of probiotics, as each food offers strains. Distinct. Microbial diversity is as important as the amount of bacteria. Beneficial. Important tip, to enhance the benefits of probiotics, also include prebiotics, foods that feed the beneficial bacteria. Good sources are onion, garlic, slightly green banana, artichoke and chicory. Food number 5, dark green leaves, neurological protectors. Completing our list of transforming foods for mental health after 60 years, we have dark green leaves, especially spinach, kale, arugula and cress. Rich in folate, magnesium, antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds, these plants offer a unique combination of nutrients that protect the brain against the degenerative processes associated with geriatric depression. How dark green leaves help combat depression. Busy acid B. I-diable, folate is essential for the synthesis of same and neurotransmitters such as serotonin, dopamine and norepinephrine. Deficiencies are extremely common in depressed elderly. High magnesium content, this mineral is a cofactor in enzymes involved in the production of brain energy and neurotransmitters. Deficiency is strongly associated with resistant depression. Natural nitrates, present especially in arugula and spinach, they are converted in nitric oxide, improving cerebral blood flow. Lutein and zeaxanthin, these carotenoids cross the hematoencephalic barrier and concentrate on brain tissue, where they fight the oxidative stress associated with depression. A survey published in JAMA Psychiatry analyzed data from 14,500 more adults, old over 12 years. Those in the upper quartile of vegetable consumption, leafy, had 34% less risk of developing depression compared to lower quartile, even after adjustments to other dietary factors and lifestyle. Dr. Cristina Almeida, a neurologist specializing in mood disorders in elderly, explains, the deficiency of folate and other nutrients present in vegetables, leafy, are among the biological factors most consistently associated with geriatric depression. Folic acid, in particular, is crucial for methylation, a cerebral chemical process that regulates gene expression and the synthesis of neurotransmitters. Mr. Jorge, 81, shares his transformation. I was always a well-known person, humorous, but after 75 years, I began to feel a persistent sadness that I had never experienced before. My doctor, besides medication, emphasized the importance of including more leafy vegetables in my diet. My daughter started preparing green smoothies for me every morning and including leaves, dark, in almost every meal. In about 2 months, I started to feel lighter mentally. Today, at 81, I became that humorous person of always. How to incorporate dark green leaves into the diet. Raw salads, the most direct form and with the highest nutrient preservation. Green smoothies, an excellent choice for elderly with chewing problems, or that do not appreciate the taste of raw leaves. Light sautéed, Rapid cooking preserves much of the nutrients while reducing volume, facilitating the consumption of therapeutic quantities. Green soups. Incorporating chopped leaves into soups adds nutrients without compromising the taste or texture. Nutritionist Dr. Beatriz Lima suggests, for the elderly, who often have compromised absorption of vitamins, the leaves should be consumed together with a small amount of healthy fat, such as extra virgin olive oil, avocado or chestnuts, which enhance the absorption of fat-soluble compounds. Important tip: people who take anticoagulants like warfarin should maintain consistent consumption, without large variations, of green leaves due to the content of vitamin K. How to create an antidepressive strategy through food. Now that we know the 5 powerful foods to combat depression, after 60, it is time to understand how to combine them in a practical strategy and personalized, basic antidepressive protocol for the elderly. Morning. 1 natural probiotic yogurt portion, 150 grams. Add pure cocoa powder, 1 teaspoon, to yogurt or prepare a green smoothie, with spinach and cocoa. Lunch. Salad with dark green leaves seasoned with olive oil and turmeric. Include salmon or sardines 2 to 3 times a week. Afternoon snack. Small piece, 20 grams, of dark chocolate, greater than 70% cocoa, golden turmeric tea or alternative option. To have lunch. Incorporate at least one of 5 antidepressive foods. Light meal favoring digestion and quality sleep. Psychiatrist Dr. Henrique Mello recommends, for noticeable results in mood, consistency is fundamental. I see better results in patients who incorporate at least 3 of these foods daily for a minimum period of 6 to 8 weeks. It is important to keep in mind that, like the pharmacological antidepressants, the bioactive nutrients need time to modulate neurological pathways. Adaptations for specific conditions. For diabetics, emphasis on dark green leaves and fatty fish. Cocoa always without added sugar, preferring chocolate with a minimum of 85% cocoa. Yogurts without added sugars, possibly sweetened with stevia if necessary. Pear. To hypertensive people, prioritize dark green leaves, bitter cocoa and yogurt. Include turmeric regularly, beneficial to blood pressure. Keep controlled sodium consumption in salmon preparations. For those who take antidepressants, consult your doctor, as some foods, especially fermented, can interact with. Maintain regularity in the consumption of green leaves if it is in use of anticoagulants. Record improvements for possible drug adjustment under supervision. In addition to food, enhancers of mental well-being. To maximize the benefits of antidepressive foods, some habits, complementary or essential. Regular sun exposure. 15 to 20 minutes of morning sun several times a week stimulate the production of vitamin D and regulate the circadian rhythm, both crucial to humor. Dr. Roberto Campos, psychiatrist, emphasizes, sunlight is a powerful natural antidepressant who works in synergy with proper nutrition. Consistent body movement, mild to moderate exercises stimulate the production of BDNF, neurotrophic factor, essential for neuroplasticity and antidepressant effect. The physiotherapist Dr. Mariana Costa recommends, for elderly with depression, daily walks of 20 to 30 minutes, preferably outdoor. They offer multiple benefits to the brain, significant social connection. Isolation dramatically aggravates geriatric depression. The psychologist Dr. Lucia Montenegro suggests, even brief interactions, such as a telephone conversation, daily or participation in weekly community groups, have a measurable impact on brain biochemistry. When seeking professional help, although proper nutrition may have a significant impact on depression, it is important to recognize when expert help is necessary. Thoughts of self-damage or suicide, seek help immediately. Severe depression that prevents basic everyday activities, loss or significant gain of involuntary weight, severe insomnia or hypersomnia, excessively sleeping, symptoms that worsen despite nutritional interventions. Dr. Carlos Silva, geriatric and psychiatrist, emphasizes antidepressive diet. It works best as part of an integrated approach that can include psychotherapy, medicines when necessary, physical activity and social connection. Foods are powerful allies, but not substitutes for professional care in moderate to severe cases. Conclusion: feeding the joy of living. When we finish our journey through the 5 transforming foods for the depression: salmon, turmeric, bitter cocoa, probiotics and dark green leaves, it is evident that the power of nutrition on mental health is much deeper than that thought a few decades ago. As sums up Dr. Fernanda Castro, geriatra and specialist in integrative medicine, what we literally eat becomes part of the signaling structures and molecules of our brain. In old age, when many metabolic processes are naturally committed, providing the right nutrients can make a difference between a brain that fights depression and one that flourishes with vitality and emotional balance. Imagine waking up in the morning feeling genuinely hopeful about the day that starts. Visualize themselves rediscovering pleasure in hobbies and relationships, who once seemed to have lost their grace. Think about facing the inevitable challenges of life with renewed emotional resilience. This is not an empty promise, but a concrete possibility for many elderly who suffer from depression. And starts with simple and accessible choices in your next meal. How about starting today? Perhaps with a portion of probiotic yogurt at the morning, a colorful salad with dark green leaves at lunch, or a small square of dark chocolate after dinner. Your mental health, and your joy of living. Thank you.